the course Mobility Solution Design Foundations are. So the requirement is to elaborate a seminal paper on one general topic. The general topic is please design a marketable mobility solution from a user perspective. This is a very generic topic. Your task will be to define a very specific research question which you can answer in a paper of 12 pages. That means just to show you some examples, and these are examples, you don't have to take one of these, but possible research question could be, how can we make specific people, specific user segment, switch from individual cars to certain public transport services in a specific city, so please choose one, in order to decrease the number of individual cars. So this has to do with the motivation. Can you think of a solution to motivate specific users to switch from individual cars to certain public transport services? This might be a BRT, this might be train services, this might be ride sharing, whatever. Another possible question or direction in which a research question could go is, how might we make specific people switch from buying individual combustion cars to buying electric cars in a specific area in order to decrease certain emissions? So here the outcome is different, decreasing green gas emissions. What are the barriers for switching from individual combustion cars to electric cars, and how can we overcome these barriers? The third possible question could be, how might we make certain people using on-demand car sharing or ride sharing services in a specific area in order to decrease the number of cars? This has also to do with the motivation of certain user segments in a certain area to use on-demand travel services instead of buying individual cars. Or a fourth example is, how might we make certain people using more cycles than individual cars for bridging short distance travels in a specific area in order to decrease the number of cars? And you can think of many more questions. This should just be that you get some ideas how to define a research question. You can take your time during the course to find out which is a possible research question you might focus on. The method is that I will guide you in this lecture through the certain steps of specific approach. This is called design thinking approach. And your task will be to follow this structure in your seminal paper. The idea is that you group yourself together in a group of minimum 2 and maximum 3 students, because this is the size of group which is workable, that you choose a topic and work on this topic. The structure of the seminal paper is very simple. There is an introduction part where you state your research question and justify why the research question is important. Then you expose the structure and the methods in order to answer the research question. The structure, I give you some hints how to define the structure. The methods are steps in the design thinking approach, so this is quite easy. The hard part is the main part, that you do a stakeholder research, and with stakeholder research, by stakeholder research I mean desktop research. So what are the needs what is the behavior of a certain user segment and how can we address this user segment with an effective solution. Then you might ideate some possible solutions, alternative solutions, and evaluate them. What is the most feasible one, the most marketable one, the most viable one, whatever. And then you should prototype the solution. That means that you sketch the solution in a sort of a prototype. I will show you what kind of prototypes are in place which you can make use of. And the third part is the closure part. This consists only of a condensed, concise answer to the research question, which have you posed in the introduction part. And then you differentiate what have you done in the paper, what are the limitations, what you haven't done, and what might be further interesting research questions. So this is the simple structure of your paper. The original idea was, in order to do a quality assurance, that you do a presentation of your paper in the course. So I don't know in what way this is possible, so we have to discuss this. But the must requirement is the paper. Yeah. So we have to define a submission date when you submit your papers. The formal requirement is the paper must not exceed 12 pages, which are approximately 6,000 words. I have kind of a format example, a template for your paper you find in Neo. This looks like this. So you might use this template because this is the general template the university here uses also for master thesis. Yeah? And what I have done here is these are the formal parts, list of figures, list of tables, list of abbreviations. This is pretty clear, a kind of an abstract. And then the structure with introduction, main part, and the summary, an appendix, and the bibliography or the literature list. So this is just to make your life easy, that you don't have to think what kind of formal elements are required. This represents exactly what is required here. So the hint is use this paper because then a lot of formal questions are already answered. And then I have also in NEO, you will also find the assessment criteria. And the assessment criteria are exactly the requirements. So what will you will get then in the end is a mark and a justification of this mark by a filled in assessment template. And please, this is for your orientation, how you can do your paper. This is also, you can use this or should use this also for quality assurance purposes. Here you see the assessment requirements are, or the assessment criteria are, have you clearly defined the research question? Is the significance of the research question justified? Is the structure and other method clearly explicated, justified, and adequate for answering the research question? These are exactly the requirements for the introduction part. In the main part, are the users clearly identified and comprehensively analyzed? This is the stakeholder research, user research. Are possible solutions outlined which address the user needs? So the requirement is that you outline at least 2 or 3 different solutions. are the solutions comprehensively evaluated and selected? Is the selected solution prototype in sufficient detail? And have you sketched out a test concept in order to test your prototype? These are exactly the requirements for the main part. And the conclusion is in the end the research question adequately answered? Are the limitations of the design explicated and open questions adequately addressed? So if you take this as a kind of a checklist, then you can be sure that you have done everything you need in the seminal paper. These count for 70% of the mark. The other 30% are formal items which are easy to get. Yeah? Follow the format guidelines. This is easy to do if you use the template I have given you. Are the citation and the bibliography guidelines being followed? So take a citation style and a style for doing the bibliography. Usually I use the Harvard style, but you can also use the APA style or whatever style this is and stick to it. And the good idea is to choose one and to stick to it till the master thesis begin, because then you get used to it. And keep the word and page limitations. So 12 pages, don't exceed it. Yeah? 1 page is okay, so 10%, but don't exceed it too much, because this results in a reduction of credits here. And the third part is the representation. Is there only content which is relevant for answering the research question? That means the requirement would be you pose your research question right in the beginning and you do everything which answers the research question. You don't put any irrelevant information into your seminal paper. Yeah? Be straightforward. Then are the words and sentences comprehensible and correct? Yeah? So that I can easily understand what you mean, and you have a correct spelling, which is such a formal requirement you can also easily fulfill. And the third one is abstract terms and concept illustrated by examples and vice versa. That means you have kind of a concept abstract language and you have specific examples. Keep the balance. So just to make sure that you have understood abstract concepts is by providing examples. And if you have examples, try to aggregate the examples to a more abstract version. And this is exactly how scientific writing is being done. That are the requirements. Take this as a checklist, and then you really have done everything in order to assure the quality of your seminal paper. So this is about the paper, about the slides and the presentation. We will talk about that. Please have a look at the template, which is provided in NEO. Please have also a look at the assessment criteria. And I will provide you a bit of an overview what scientific writing means. Yeah? We will do that when we discuss this in the team session. But what I have tried is to integrate all the requirements now, which apply for sound academic writing into the requirements for the seminal paper. And if you have learned to fulfill the requirements and have learned what this means, then I think this would be a good entry point to prepare you also for the master thesis. So this is the key message here. If you do your seminal paper for the first time, which could be, then I would also recommend some literature how to write research papers. There are very good hints and examples for doing that. This is a list of it, how to write good research papers. So since you have to do this in this master course in every semester multiple times, I think it's worth that you make yourself acquainted with the requirements how to do a research paper. Okay, key messages are the key requirement is to define a clear research question and to provide a justified answer to this research question. This is one of the most important characteristics of academic work. Your research question consists in the design of a mobility solution from a user perspective. So don't write or don't select a topic from the perspective of a city or the perspective of some NGOs, but on a user perspective. We are talking here about marketability. So does a specific solution comply with the needs of a defined user segment? The method I will propose to you and the method which you should follow is the design thinking approach. I will introduce this to you during the course, step by step, and I will provide you the opportunity to transfer the steps to your paper. So the one hint would be look for one or two companions, one or two other students that you build your group as soon as possible so that you can start working on your paper. Then we will discuss the requirements. So if we do the presentation or if we leave it out or in what form we do that. But the purpose of this would be that I will give you my intention would be to give you the opportunity to align what your research question and your structure with me. Either you do this in the form of a presentation or you just hand in some slides or hand in some abstracts. We will discuss this. And use the aids I have given you, which is the template, the former template, and also the assessment criteria. Thank you very much.